one thing I was thinking about, as far as my inspiration, the concept of love. What's the nature of love or life, or creation, however we think about it, that divine spark that kind of unites things. The nature of it seems to be places in your existence where you put in a little bit and you seem to get a disproportional amount back. That like if there's evidence of a creator or something like behind the scenes kind of trying to inspire us or nudge us and say, yes, that's what you want to focus, evolutionary efficiency. And so what about Kyanite? What if it's wrapped up in some sort of evolutionary advantage, and it's wrapped up in the being's concept of love and homeostasis with the planet, where it is such a disproportional gift, like the powers and the strength that Kyanite lends, that the beings of each different planet in their own ways recognize that and give back.
Welcome to the StarShip Writers Room, a podcast that gives you an up-close look at the creation of the StarShip universe.
We talk new characters, hash out plot points, and imagine possibilities that are truly out of this world.
And which you might see featured in the StarShip NFT game,
a play-to-earn cryptocurrency game set in outer space.
I'm Melanie, the StarShip lore champion, joined by my co-host and fellow StarShip lore creator,
Spazzitron of CryptoPhoenix.org.
Unfortunately, Spazzitron cannot join us today, but he will be back with us next week. And we do have Shooty from the Writers Room, who you all know very well by now. So as we like to start the podcast off with something that inspired one of us this week, especially as it might relate to our ideas and creation of the lore, I wanted to share something, which is that I am cat sitting a little blind cat who has no eyes, and she just gets around seamlessly. You would never, ever think she's blind, even though she has no eyes. And what I noticed is her whiskers are, even more active than like a seeing cat might be. But they kind of reach forward towards me when she's kind of scanning me, and they really just do so much. And this inspired me to create a creature who is on the glacial planet, and it's a massive, scary creature in the deep waters of the planet, and he has these whiskers all over his body that kind of help him get around, sense when there's an intruder in his territory. And he's super fast, and it's just like he has this other way of sensing the world. So that is what Princess Consuela, who is the cat, has inspired.
Oh, I really like that. I it's important that we evolve past eyes necessarily, like we think about the evolutionary traits and how they develop, and, eyes existing. I don't know. And I'm just thinking off the top of my head, so it might sound silly, but like eyes existing in this world because of light, because of, but like, what if there's a certain depth in a glacier planet where there just really isn't light? So everything would be eyeless.
Mm-hmm.
And so there'd be more variations on that, not just a whisker monster, but some monster, something a little more sonar-like or both, or something that only goes by like thermal imaging, or I don't know.
Yeah, there's just there's so much possibility. We can just open ourselves up to it, and we really don't have to kind of get stuck in our own experience. We can explore those possibilities.
Yeah, like we think about how eyes developed, within the ocean, and sort of to harness light and focus it on a point, and then like the early, fish, or for all of you scientists out there, thank you for your patience with me. But yeah, just thinking about like how the eye might have formed if we're even using an eye, like just would it form like a little globe at the end of an appendage that looks 360 degrees?
Or like flounder have 2 eyes on one side.
Those fish are always a little ridiculous. Animal Crossing has a fish that you fish out, the dab.
Yeah. Well, speaking of creatures, we kind of wanted to share a bit about the creatures that we've come up with recently.
Yeah. Do you want to go first?
I don't mind. I did come up with some kind of already alluded to this deep water monster that I'm really excited about. I saw a photo of a drawing, I should say, an illustration of a helicoprion. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it is a water monster, a water dinosaur, excuse me. And basically what really fascinated me about this creature was its jaw. The bottom jaw is kind of curled up into itself and it has teeth. So that really reminded me of kind of like an elephant trunk almost. Like, what if we had this deep water creature with this fanged trunk that they used for defense, for eating, for probing their environment? And like I said, this creature lives in the depths, and the planet that I was writing, that is the glacial type, is really dark. So this creature really doesn't have use for sight, and it's really territorial, really big, and really old. So it's actually lived through many iterations of the planet's existence.
When you said old and talking about how many teeth, I just imagine like, what did that poor guy? He's just angry because he has a toothache.
Right.
All them teeth and no toothbrush.
Also, maybe he had more teeth when he was younger. He's lost them. I was also thinking that these whiskers that I talked about that are all over his body, they help identify food, intruders, surroundings, but they are also weapons themselves. So they might be poisonous or maybe give an electric shock that can hurt or stun you or, kill. So these whiskers are vital to the creature's continued existence, but they're kind of the creature's biggest strength and its biggest weakness.
Okay. How do you mean as far as a weakness?
Well, if something happens to them, then he's basically rendered senseless. He's got no way to orient himself, to find food, to protect himself from intruders. So they're really dangerous, but once it's figured out that maybe, that they can be kind of gotten rid of, then that gives any opposition to the creature some fighting chance, basically.
Right. If anybody's brave enough to band together and take down the big guy. Right.
Yeah. I do kind of have a soft spot for him for some reason. So.
No, as you're describing it, I got kind of the same thing, just this lonely dweller, like whether it might be terrifying to us or whether even if it might be aggressive, like that's its home,
And
that's its
he's
play.
Only one of his kind. He's just doing his thing, his natural thing. And like, he's already been through so much. So I do see, kind of getting beyond the creature, there's also like a crust or core civilization that I'm working on. So I kind of first see a storyline of visitors to the planet wanting to get to this crust civilization and having to get through the creature, the deep water monster. And I already have this soft spot for him. So I'm like, I hope they can do this without hurting him. Especially I think because he's the only one of his kind. So it would be such a loss if he goes. But yeah.
So I have some thoughts to go along with that. When you first brought up the, can you say it again? A
Helicoprion. I'm probably butchering that, but it's like HELICOPRION.
So when you first thought it up, one of the things I think about when we're kind of cross-referencing our own dinosaurs and potentially extinct species is sort of, why did they go extinct? Like having all those teeth that curl outward and make this loop-de-loop and stuff, like it's not evolutionarily efficient. So maybe they die out for good reason. Not saying your guy, please don't get defensive. I mean, your guy's great. But within the context of Earth, for example, just thinking about like, on what planet would that exact same trait have caused them to thrive instead of fading out of the evolutionary tree, and that's sort of just a half-formed thought, So in what way are the teeth or the whiskers or whatever other supplementary thing, what way is that instead of being a bug, in what way is it a feature? Something that allows it all to thrive and click on a glacier planet that wouldn't otherwise. But again, that's just kind of a half-formed idea.
Well, as you were talking, I was thinking of like, well, what if actually it's the circumstances that have helped him live so long? Because the circumstances are that they, like I hinted at, there were other iterations of the planet. So it could be that this planet is in some type of ice age, and actually it helped him that all of the other big players went extinct, the other creatures that he would have been dealing with. So maybe it's that these creatures have just such long natural lives, but that maybe back in the day when there were more of them, they didn't live that long because they had other factors that were getting in the way of that, basically.
Yeah. So this kind of ties into sort of something that I'm picking at, that we're, for you listeners, we're still in kind of a stage where everything we say, everything we're talking about in the Lore podcast, like these are things which are likely to end up as canon, because, why rewrite a good idea? Why even talk about it if it doesn't seem like it's worth it? But there's still a lot of like just kind of exploring and playing like, what if we applied this rule? How would that play out? And one of those kind of loose things that I'm working on, as I've referenced in other episodes, is the idea that Kyanite has a specific power, or an enhancement property based on which planet. And so, magma can bring out discipline and strength and power. That's kind of a common trope for fire themes. And we're between you and I, we're kind of still nailing down like Crystal Planet as consciousness, or Paradise as some higher consciousness, or something like that. But for Glacier, I think it would be interesting to explore the concept of endurance. How would evolutionary traits change in a developing planet over several iterations of a planet? How would evolutionary traits and simple day-to-day life change if endurance was something that was, like if you had creatures that only need to eat once a month, or creatures that have extra thick skins that are temperature resistant, or, creatures like your creature, like he's just lived so long, he's become a part of the planet, and, maybe some echo of the heartbeat of the planet itself through the power of the Kyanite has become a part of him. And so he is the planet in a sense, because he's survived the old planet and lived to be born. He's sort of the godfather of the planet. Like the planet recognizes him on an energetic level as needing to survive, like a father.
I love that. I love the glacial planet as, that its feature as endurance.
I think it's a really good fit, and I like to move us conceptually, like I said, something that will give us a lot of evolutionary roadmap for why things happened, and why, just as a fun thing of like why different creatures or different races are surviving.
Yes. I mean, if we think of endurance also as like in other, words that may have different connotations, we can think of things like stubbornness, rigidity, unwavering, And I think
Yes.
all of these are really, inspire a lot of storylines for sure.
Oh, very like Stephen King, The Stand, or even just the first book in the Dark Tower series, where he's almost referencing the Stand village. That maybe there's a culture or a religion or just a storyline like One Time where the characters come across very religious, like very dogmatic religious, like American Puritan kind of thing, except, as always, being culturally sensitive, not like trying to put anybody in the hot seat or under a bad light, but just some sort of like very Puritan, like even to the point of, ritual sacrifice or something that we, or that the story characters might find offensive or not desirable, but for them, this is how they've endured. This is how their tradition has been passed on, like how they've survived harsh winter. It's not even winter anymore because it's just every single moment.
It's just the way.
Yeah.
That lets us explore too, like, how is change on this world? And just when these concepts or worldviews, when we take them on, and maybe in the beginning they're really serving us, whatever it is, but then there's something that happens when we become really attached to them, and the script flips and they're no longer serving us. It's like we're at their service. And it would do us some good to check in and be like, all right, is this, belief or whatever still applicable? What is my reality, and just being open to what your reality is without letting these preconceived notions of what it should be get in the way from you actually experiencing it.
Yeah. This opens up like a really potentially very engaging story beat, where the traditions of these people that maybe, Faye or Lord Albright or whoever comes across, they have to do it. Like it has to work. Like that's, or maybe they've convinced themselves it has to be done this way. But something that like actually challenges us as the reader, us as the listener, it challenges us to think, like satire or like art in general. I know I've just described art. Thank you. Shooty has invented the concept of art. But something that like, it just a little bit more of a potent moment because of cultural tradition and maybe even like religion or some sort of dogma that really challenges the reader to, I don't want to say any more than that because I haven't really thought of anything more than that. But that could be something really like, really engaging, a really good hook to explore.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I really think there's a lot with the crust race, as I'm calling them, especially with like procreation, because like there's not really freedom of movement, and you might need a special circumstance or something to move into another area of the crust, and maybe something with like a predetermined or an externally determined way that they procreate to ensure diversity in the genetic material, because they don't, this is kind of not fully formed, obviously, but I'm thinking of something like with that's, this way that they've found this works for them, that really maybe disregards love. And then a visitor comes and they sees it and it's just really jarring to them. But it's like, this is the way it works. And that is their value system,
Yeah. So this one potential, it could be something like very natural, like nature-based on the glacier planet. Like when the sun hits this rotation once a year, it thaws out the ceiling of this upper crust cave that they live in. So it actually creates a giant ring where all the water is dripping on the outsides of the ring. And so that's their cue to get to procreating. And then maybe something they do after people have procreated, or, they do something very mathematical, something very cold, using a pun, something very calculated where logically it makes sense. But to us as the reader, as human beings, we don't especially now, to be a little topical, we really don't like blanket statements and logical blanket treatments of people or things that might have been something we used to be able to do. But these days, with Instagram and everything, everybody is even more special. Everybody is even less of just a number, in the irony of it all. But so maybe after the sunlight has melted this ring and everybody is, some sort of cold calculated orgy has happened, then they 75% of the women, they just send them down the garbage chute to the next crust. And I hope that your world works out. And that's their tradition. And it's very logical that they trim out 75%. We did the deed. I hope they go live somewhere else on the other crust, and logically they should survive. And this is the way, and so that even kind of opens up, what if Faye or the characters or us, we finally get to that second stage, that second crust level, and it's horrible, or it's wonderful and it thrives and it works. So the cold calculating math has caused them to be successful, but that rubs against us as the human, us as the reader, who says it's bad to just eject people from a village based on numbers, or something.
Yeah.
So just a thought, just for fun,
I think it questions what is successful, and is it in this case, is it just the highest numbers that survive? And also it makes me question too, the value of survival versus quality of life.
Yeah, that can be a big deal on the glacier planet. That can create a strong pairing with the desert planet, which is sort of, just by being a desert, or as Tron has suggested, maybe even a dust planet. That sets up the scarcity of life that's kind of implied in a desert planet.
Yeah, that's actually funny, because as I was writing the glacial planet, at first I was like, okay, there's not going to be much here. And then something flipped and I was like, oh my gosh, it was pouring out of me. And there was all this, there was a lot more life than I expected for an ice planet.
Right.
So that
and that's
a pleasant surprise.
Along those lines, one thing I was thinking about, as far as my inspiration, the concept of love. So for anybody who's listening to this for the first time and didn't listen to the very first episode, I'm a yoga teacher. So these kind of concepts, big overarching, what does it mean to be human? This is just kind of a part of my week, stuff I talk about with my students and stuff I think about on my own. And one of those, what's the nature of love or life? or creation, however we think about it, that divine spark that kind of unites things. The nature of it seems to be things that you can invest yourself in that get a greater return, and I know that's from a very analytical, very logical kind of place of describing what it is. But what I mean is, my relationship with my wife, for anybody who wants to live their life any way they want, whatever partner, or alone, by choice, or, anyway. But for me, pairing up one-to-one has always been something that's been important to me. And being with my wife, I see that the more I put into our relationship, the more I invest and the more time goes in, the better it all becomes in ways that I could have never imagined. And so that concept, the more I put into myself in yoga or in exercise, the better my entire life gets. Places in your existence where you put in a little bit and you seem to get a disproportional amount back, that if there's evidence of a creator or something behind the scenes kind of trying to inspire us or nudge us and say, yes, that's what you want to focus, evolutionary efficiency, just raw efficiency, finding things that you put in a little bit and you get a lot out of, like a plane or a screw, evolutionary tools that leverage the next level, And so what about Kyanite? What if for each of our races around the world, for all these different planets, magma lends this kind of kyanite and ocean lends this kind of kyanite. What if it's wrapped up in some sort of evolutionary advantage, and it's wrapped up in the being's concept of love and homeostasis with the planet, where it is such a disproportional gift, the powers and the strength that Kyanite lends, that the beings of each different planet in their own ways recognize that and give back. They're in human beings, we have a tendency to take our abundance for granted a little bit, because that's just part of our conflict, part of our struggle. But what if things that happen in this Kyanite universe are happening a little more in a balanced way, where the peoples of the grass planet, or even just all the races and species and animals and everything, innately know that they have to give back. They're so inspired by the abundance and the power that this Kyanite gives that they just have more, their abundance, the overflowing. And so they give it back to the planet by respecting and honoring that kind of stability. And so it just playing with that concept of the universal concept of love, or what is life, what is the nature of, God, or, as a fundamental thought, something that gives more when you invest in it. And that really hooks us in, because it's crypto, right? This is I put money into this, and the more other people put money into this, it's wrapped up in an idea. The more we all put into this, the more it can thrive. And so it's with cryptocurrency in general, we're actively birthing our own next stage. And I think there can be a powerful, very potent intrinsic relationship built into the lore of what Kyanite is and how it helps, kind of birth this universe that we get to then step into as explorers.
Yes, I love that.
So there we go.
Yeah. I'm reminded also of what you said previously about it kind of unlocking your true self and letting you show up in the universe as your true self. And then another idea it's kind of that came from when you were talking about, it kind of inspires that service to the planet. It's almost like it puts the person who, or whatever, the creature who interacts with it in resonance with the planet. So it's like, it's not even like they're separated by thought of, oh, I need to give back. But it's like, that's just what becomes like their natural state of being, is because they're so themselves, they're naturally just giving back in that way by showing up as themselves.
Exactly. What if, here's a fun story beat. This happens in a lot of different legends and stories, but like, what if there's a Galahad character or like a side character, one of Lord Albright's original crew, somebody that like we as the reader kind of grow attached to, that finds a planet, whatever planet that is, ocean or paradise, where they realize that planet has been calling to them, that like the resonance is so strong that when they touch down and get involved in the people, or that story beat happens, that they don't leave. They're home. Like they found resonance with this planet, and that's where you will find them from then on. They get revisited in the story, or maybe not, or whatever. That'd be kind of a potential powerful moment.
Totally. It's really, probing that notion of what is home, and sometimes home isn't where we were born or grew up. It's like, it's what we discover and beyond, beyond those places. And it's maybe not even a place, but it's, it's another way to express and show up as our true selves.
We have this game, Deploy Starship, right? Or at least that's the Twitter handle, because now it's sometimes referred to as StarShip NFT game. And I've always, in my head, the game is called Deploy Starship, because that word deploy, it's so evocative, so strong, and it implies, like, where are you deploying from? Why are you deploying? Where are you deploying to? Like, having a verb, it's very powerful. And so, yeah, this concept, like, some people who are playing this game, or eventually when we're creating more of a universe to step into, like, some people are deploying because they're trying to get away from somewhere, or some people are deploying because they want to amass wealth so that they can come home again, and there's just like kind of the little reasons why I play the game, why somebody in this country plays the game, why somebody in this part of the world is playing the game. Like, we all have our reasons.
Yeah, so I love that, like, all these different whys, all these different expressions, all these different current states are coming together and experiencing this in their own unique ways and forming a community at the same time.
With the last few minutes, I was wondering, would it be all right if I introduced the thought about the magma planet?
Please do.
So my thoughts so far, is we're kind of rolling with, still tentative, but kind of rolling with it for a few weeks now. The concept of, like, what if each planet, each Kyanite, a different type of power or a different concept that appeals to the reader, but also seems intuitive. Like, these are rooted in the laws of nature. This is like, no matter what universe we're in, this concept is something that is like kind of valued. And one of those, with magma, I wanted to avoid kind of the overdone trope that it's like fire equals chaos and rage and anger. I'm thinking more like within the chakra system, or within, something that fire represents, as you suggested, discipline and strength, sort of a burning away of who we used to be, so that we can move forward into who we're meant to become. So concepts of a phoenix, come out pretty easily there. And so for anybody listening, for anybody who hasn't done this bit of research, kyanite is an actual earth mineral. Most abundantly, it's in kind of a light blue color. It has a sort of crystalline structure, a strength that's been compared to quartz as far as like durability and your ability to actually like crack it with a tool. But one of the most abundant uses for kyanite is in forging equipment. So kyanite is very temperature resistant. So we combine it with, and this is for reals, not just in our imaginary universe, we combine it with ceramic to make brake pads, for example. So, and we use it in forging equipment to create containers in which to forge other metals. So using it for bricks in kilns and as mold shapes for molds. And so this idea, if we're going to evolve the strength of kyanite, what if one iteration of a magma planet, you know, like say you hold magma planet NFT cards in your wax wallet, and when we decide, if we decide that planets have variations, and one of the more rare variations of any planet would be a mythic forge magma planet. So people have to come to your planet to make legendary and mythic ship components. And so that like kind of exploring that idea of magma planet being where you find the mythic forges that people need to go to. What would the blacksmith race look like? So I thought of this idea for a massive kind of Minotaur-like race, big black horns like Tim Curry's Big D from Legend, big like elephant size. Why not, right? Like if I'm gonna play, you know, might as well play. Like what if there's these kind of elephant-sized Minotaur race, and just to give it a twist or just to make it kind of fit, what if they have kind of scales like a dragon or a newt that you would find near a volcano on Earth? And so kind of these like lizard-like, bull-like race. And I was thinking like the toros, because toro, you know, means bull. And but then they're also like Komodo dragons. So the fun kind of working name right now, the Toro Komodans, this race of very powerful blacksmith people that kind of embody the discipline and refinement that is the magma planet itself. That's my idea for this week. That's one of the big ones I've sort of come up with. And you know, again, whether we run with it or not, it's kind of fun to explore these ideas.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's what it is. It's like there's no use in limiting yourself, you know, let it flow. And it's really fun. I think, you know, it's really fun when it is just flowing. And then that's when the really surprising stuff comes up. You're like, what? Where did this exist in me? Like, this didn't come from me. Like, this came from something else.
Well, like I think we all spontaneously came up with the giant gas spider thing last week. Mm-hmm. Just by talking it out, we all kind of came up with the idea. Maybe it was you who said it.
That was so fun. Yeah. Yeah. And that's what, like, it's so fun to, I think for a long time, I took my creativity really seriously. And over the last year or so, I've been really practicing having fun while creating, and it's so much better. It's like so fun. Yeah. And also just getting to create in collaboration with you guys. It like, yeah, I love it. You know, it's so fun, and it's really special, I think.
Yeah. Along those lines, to appeal to the listener as well. You know, we always try and give a little bit of a shout out, or send the trumpets to the community to keep lore submissions coming. Melanie, you always link lore at deploystarship.com. We turn those into Google documents and kind of share it with each other so that we can kind of stay up to date and talk. And so I have reached a point in my life where I'm not, like you said, when I'm creating, it's like there's this paralyzing power to it, that you're writing something and it better be perfect, because now people are going to associate it with you. You know, it's going to be like, it's been created, you can't take it back, like a tweet or like something you post on Instagram, or, you know, or it's little cousin Snapchat there. Like if you send it out, it's out there. And so topically, you know, in the year 2022 in human history, we're inspired to create more and open up our imaginations by this bounty of images and videos that we're sharing with each other. At the same time, it's, you know, it can be a bit suppressive, a bit paralyzing. Like if I'm going to release this TikTok video, it has to, you know, if we come to it as a 38-year-old person or whatever, like there's all this existential dread and paralyzing, like it represents who I am. It's everything. It's my art. It's, you know, and so it leads you to never create, you know, it leads you to never actually produce something. And Steve Jobs famously quoted, real artists ship, meaning there has to be a deadline. There has to be a point where you just, whatever's on paper, you give it away. It's gone, it's done. And that is a very necessary part of our psyche for moving on and creating the next wonderful thing. And so for me, I've kind of gotten to a point in my life where I don't care anymore. I'm able to just free flow and creatively and say, okay, here's another idea. Great, here's another idea. Like, and then if we use it, fine. If we don't, fine. And the release of emotional attachment is quite important. Like it's important to feel emotions, but to be attached to your work is it can be crippling. And so for people that are coming up with submissions, I've talked to a couple in Discord. I'm hanging out in Discord, Lore Keeper ShootyPewPew. And feel free to DM me in there. And I haven't gotten too many DMs, and certainly none from scammers yet. So I don't have to close that door yet. But I had one person, you know, kind of like, well, what if it's not good? You know, what if and so I said to him, and this is kind of my cue for all of you writers and creators out there. I was like, imagine you're just hanging out with your best friend. You know, what I said to this guy was, imagine you're having a drink at the bar. That's not always appropriate because some people might be a little younger. But imagine you're talking to your best friend and you're telling this legendary story. Like, this guy, you won't believe what this character did. And then go. You know, the things you don't want to leave out, the little personality traits, the things that make the story engaging and fun. Like, just focus on that as if you're talking about your favorite thing, your favorite food, your favorite stuffed animal, your favorite color. You know, the passion that you put behind that inspires the creativity, and you don't even have to think about it. It just comes out. And we like, not just me and Melanie, but human beings, we like that. You know, when passion is in the forefront, it seems like we respond to that more than logically, this is a good idea, you know? So don't be paralyzed by creativity is kind of what I'm saying. Like, just put it out there. Trust that it's just a bit of fun. It's doodles on a paper, and let it be that. And it kind of unleashes your best self. Doodles on a paper.
Totally. And about it being good or bad, or it's like really what lights you up, you know, there's no judgment on that. We want to see what lights you up and how that can fit in this co-creation.
Yeah. And you know, for some people are writing paragraphs. Some people have obviously put a lot of really in-depth thought into this. And so it's like, some people, it's just, here's a fun thing, go ahead, have it. I don't care if anything ever happens to it. And some people, it's been a little bit like, if this is used, I want credit. And that is important, right? That's like somehow like writing your name into things. And putting your stamp on the Kyanite universe. And so if you are hesitant to submit lore because you feel like it's going to be stolen or you're not going to be paid for it, part of it is like, well, that's not really the spirit of what we're doing right now at this stage in creation. But also feel free to comment that, write up your whole doodle or snippet or whatever for a character or a tool or a creature. And then if it's important to you, like write a little thing that says, hey, here's who I am. Please don't use this without my permission. And if you do use it, I would love to be contacted, and down the line, because it's going to be a few months before we have a cohesive universe put together. So there's time to like have a database that we're gathering, and feel free to suggest a little bit of ownership over it. That's okay too.
Yes, thank you so much, Shooty, for being here. It is always a pleasure to talk to you. Before we wrap up this episode of the StarShip Writers Room, we want to give a few shout outs to some community members who have submitted their ideas to the lore@deploystarship email address. Thank you so much to Lucas, who had some ideas following our last episode on the gas planet. Lucas says, perhaps the sacrifices to the gas planet entity were originally of beings who had done terrible wrongs, but as those numbers dwindled, lesser crimes are now used right up to the menial non-crimes that we kind of mentioned in the episode. Lucas goes on to suggest that maybe rather than being sent to the actual gas planet, they are sent to a closer moon that is engulfed by the gas. This is such a cool idea that there are, multiple moons at different proximities to the gas planet. And the farther away the moon is, as Lucas puts it, the safer that moon is. Lucas also suggests that each moon forms its own colonies, each of which choose who gets sent to the closer moon, closer and closer until they are the actual offering. They're the sacrifice. I personally love this idea. I visualize it as kind of the diagrams that we see our own solar system, like that, as if, the gas planet was the sun, and then each of our planets were different moons, like kind of orbiting in that fashion, just like closer and closer. I also kind of visualized it as if they were all in a line for some reason, probably going back to that same diagram. And I just think this inspires a lot. It just, gives us what kind of creatures are on each of the moons, what kind of societies and cultures and beliefs, and how does it differ with who is sent, what are crimes on the different moons? I think this just opens up so many questions. So that's always a really good sign, as if we're asking a lot of questions and getting really excited. So thank you so much, Lucas, for your submission. We also want to thank Dritz, who has returned with another submission chronicling Wilbur, the moonshining, pickup driving stowaway. So this is a super fun story that Dritz has written and submitted to us. So I'm actually going to save this until I have Shooty and Spazzitron with me so that we can talk about this further. But thank you so much, Dritz, for your submission. And finally, thank you so much to Mark, who actually submitted an idea for the game itself. So if you guys have any ideas for the game, please feel free to send them over, and I'll just send your ideas on to our game development team. Yeah, don't hesitate. If you have an idea for the game or the lore or the two together, send it on through. Thank you so much. I'll see you next week.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of StarShip Writers Room.
If you have an idea for the StarShip lore, we would love to hear it, and you might even get a shout out on the pod.
Simply send it to lore@deploystarship.com.
That's LORE@deploystarship.com.
We hope you have a stellar day,
and we'll see you next week.